if we're talking about like single parenthood rates, what's interesting is the conversation tends to be about Black Americans, and I understand it because it's disproportionately high, right? The children who were born out of wedlock, essentially. And while it may not be like one to one as far as, yeah, you were born out of wedlock, but maybe you are in an intact home, that kind of situation. But um, I would venture to say that most of those situations where the children are born out of wedlock, it is not a from age 0 to 18, the mother and the father are living in the same home, right? You're more likely to get that circumstance if you are married. And there's various reasons as to why. So disproportionately, it is high for Black Americans. However, what I would contend is that for the majority population, which are white Americans, in totality, there are more white Americans who are experiencing this situation than Black Americans. It's just that it is because it's the majority population, it's spread out. And while I'm talking about single parenthood linked with crime and things like that, a lot of that has to do with location, right? So when we think of where do Black people live, 60, I think it's like 62, 63% of Black Americans live in 10 states, so Illinois, Chicago.
Right.
When we think of, Georgia, Atlanta, right? So we know exactly it's in or in the surrounding urban major cities, urban areas, right? California, Los Angeles, that kind of situation. So if you have a high rate, I would say a high percentage of children who are growing up in single parent homes, and on the extremes, because obviously not every kid who from a single parent home is a criminal and using drugs, but on the extremes they are. The extremes get exaggerated because the people are clustered. And so you are going to see more gang violence because gangs are a result of lost boys who are directionless, who are getting
Right.
caught up, right? So the issue gets concentrated in specific areas. And coincidentally, those specific areas tend to be media hubs for those areas, right? So every time we turn on the news, there's some violent crime, we get New York, Chicago, LA,
Right.
right? Maybe DC, right? And they tend to be a high concentration of Black Americans on the disproportionate side. They are criminals, right? On the extremes, they're criminals. And that becomes the thing that is really in our face, right? But do I think that, in rural or even suburban areas in Iowa, that Black people are the majority population committing crimes? Or places in New Mexico, Arizona, where majority of the population is Hispanic, right? So obviously it's location oriented. But
Right.
I think for a lot of white Americans, because um, obviously the majority of people who are incarcerated are not Black.
Right.
So the majority population is suffering from this, right? It's just that the issue is spread out throughout the country. It's not as concentrated as it is for Black Americans. That's kind of like the unique thing that is happening. But the reason I bring that up is because if we make the focus only about Black Americans and the lack of a united family for Black Americans, we're actually ignoring the pain of every other child, including white children, who are also suffering from family separation, from divorce, from single parenthood, right? From foster care, right? Because there are plenty of white kids who are going through the same thing, who are growing up poor, who are being left behind, who are being ignored, who are suffering.